If you're Andre Galvao and you walk up to another guy who you obviously have an issue with and you push him, what do you expect is going to happen?
Like, to me, all of that behavior leading up to right before the slap is Galvao is antagonizing and wants to fight. I'm Justin Lesko, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and former pro MMA fighter.
And I'm Mike Callahan, a Brazilian Jiu Jitsu brown belt and law enforcement officer.
So in the lead up to this weekend's Who's Number One event, I had a feeling it might be one of the biggest jiu-jitsu events of all time just based on who was on the card.
Yeah, and I'd say that it lived up to the hype even before the slap.
Yeah, I think the slap just cements it as a card that we'll talk about for the rest of our lives. So let's not waste any time. Let's get right into it.
Welcome to That Jiu Jitsu Podcast.
Do you know who I feel very bad for this weekend? My heart goes out to Craig Jones, because Craig Jones had a really nice match and hit a really good heel hook. He was the main event of the card, and Gordon Ryan slaps Andre Galvao backstage, and that's what the story of the event is.
There were a lot of good matches, and I mean, it really did live up to the hype. There was a lot of high-quality jiu-jitsu. With that being said, the slap just kind of overshadowed the entire event. It's been one of those things where I've probably watched it 50 times, and I'm just looking for different things.
Yeah,
like
you're trying to Zapruder the Gordon Ryan slap.
I'm trying to see. I've watched it to see what Danaher was going to do. Was Danaher going to fight? Was Danaher going to just break it up?
Danaher standing between them, just stone faced. I couldn't tell if he was about to murder Galvao or if he looked the most serial killer ish.
But dude, what do you do? You're in let's be honest, that was probably at that point in time, with all those guys, the most dangerous room in the world at that moment. You know what I mean? Just with all those trained killers in the room,
So before we go any further, this is what we should do. In case anyone hasn't seen what we're talking about, I'm sure if you're listening to this show, you're aware. But just before we get too far off track.
So Gordon and Roberto Jimenez fought in the co-main event. Then the main event, Gordon and Danaher cornered Craig Jones against Ronaldo Jr., who is an Atos guy. So after that match, the coaches went over to shake hands, and Gordon went to shake Galvao's hand, and Galvao flipped him off.
Then after that happens, this is on the mat, there's no confrontation or whatever, and then we pick up this clip of backstage where now Galvao is I'm not saying chasing because he wasn't running after him, but he's walking towards Gordon and chatting shit at him. Gets close enough to Gordon that he pushes Gordon, and Gordon slaps him across the face. And Gordon keeps walking, and Galvao keeps antagonizing Gordon, and then it's off camera, but we hear a slap sound again. And Gordon slaps him a second time. And then later on, Gordon is sitting down to do his interview for Flow Grappling, and Galvao approaches him again, and then this is where we have this sort of who's who in grappling is all in one room. We got multiple people trying to break this up because now Gordon Ryan is pissed. On the first two slaps, he was slapping him and walking away, but now he was going after Galvao, ready to fight him.
Here's what it looked like to me. So right after the main event, Gordon and his girlfriend were walking off stage. Galvao looked like he was talking on the phone. And he called Gordon a pussy. And he said, and Gordon just kept walking. And he said, why are you walking away? So at that point, Gordon did an about face. He's like, what are you talking to? Saying, I'm right here. I'm not walking away. And started walking towards Galvao as Galvao was walking towards him. So they meet. They get, chest to chest, and Galvao pushes him. And Gordon smacks him. And then Galvao, that smack, and it was an open-handed slap, that slap, it looked like it wobbled him. It looked like he was almost
staggered Galvao.
It did stagger him. So my only thing is, I don't know how to I don't condone it, right? It's silly. It's silly fighting. It's silly, and people are saying I lost so much respect for Gordon, and these guys are, at the end of the day, these guys are fighters. Like, you can say that they're BJJ athletes and whatever. They're fighters, right? They have a fight. They have a fighter's mentality, that mindset. If you're Andre Galvao, and Galvao's fought professional MMA before, like he fought in Strikeforce, he fought Tyron Woodley, you know? If you're Andre Galvao and you walk up to another guy who you obviously have an issue with and you push him, what do you expect is going to happen?
All bets are off at that point. If you're Galvao, if you walk up to someone who, like you said, you have problems with and you push them, you're like, to me, all of that behavior leading up to right before the slap is Galvao is antagonizing and wants to fight. And then Gordon slaps him and Galvao didn't actually want to fight, because if I'm Galvao and I'm walking up to someone I hate and I push them and they slap me, it's on. Like, that means that we're now fighting. I would be wrong for doing that and walking up to someone like that. But if I did, what was your plan? Why did you get close? Like, were you hoping someone was going to jump in between you and break you up before, like, what were you thinking?
There was nobody there. And there was nobody there.
And then Galvao comes back again when Gordon is doing an interview. Well, when all these people are around.
Right. The whole thing followed. So here's what I think. I don't think, in all reality, that Galvao knew that that smack was on film. I don't think he did. I don't think that he knew that that was on tape. I think that he looks really bad. And this isn't me, and I think that you share this mindset too. This isn't me being a hard ass. If Brock Lesnar came up to me and smacked me in the face, I would fight Brock Lesnar. Like, I would at least throw a punch at Brock Lesnar. You know what I mean? If John Jones open-handed smacked me in the face, I would throw a punch back. Like, that's just... And I was shocked to see Andre Galvao didn't do that. It looked really bad, considering that he pushed him, considering that Gordon... You know, Gordon's a child. Gordon acts like a child on social media, right? And with all the shit talking and everything. But with that being said, Galvao flipped him off. Gordon was walking past him. Didn't say a word. Galvao initiated it. That fucking ignited Gordon. Gordon walks back, chest to chest, push, slap. Then they go off camera, slap again. Then Gordon walks away and starts walking into a room full of people. And then Galvao's following him and yelling at him. It's like, what are you trying to get out of it? You want to tell him, like, that he's a child, which he was doing?
In the clip of the second approach, when Galvao is approaching Gordon in the room full of people, you can hear Galvao saying that he wants to just talk to him man to man. I just want to talk to you. And Gordon's yelling, I just slapped the shit out of your mouth. Like, what do you want to talk to him about? And I'm not making any accusations here. And I'm really, again, I'm trying to play this right down the middle. I'm not taking sides in this. I'm not condoning anyone's behavior. Not making allegations, but Galvao is acting like a drunk guy in a bar who got into an altercation and now wants to be best friends with everyone.
Let me just talk. Let me just talk to him.
You see him putting his hand on John Danaher's shoulder when Danaher is obviously not in a mood to be chatting with him and saying, "Oh, I respect you, John." Like, it's "I love you, man" talk. Like, "I love you, man." Like, I don't want to fight. Like, it just seemed, again, I don't have any evidence to back this up. It just, I'm seeing a correlation in behavior between what Galvao was doing in that clip and what I've seen drunk people do in a bar. And it was just peculiar.
Here's the other thing. Like, he was calling him a child and said he just wanted to talk to him. Like, okay. Say we want to take that at face value and believe that he really did want to talk to him. How could you possibly expect anyone to understand that? This is, again, why I don't think that he realized that he was being that whole first encounter was on tape, because Gordon walked by him and he initiated the contact between the two of them at that point by saying, "You're a fucking pussy. Why are you walking away?" Like, that's generally not how you start a conversation with somebody who you want to have a man-to-man conversation with. You know what I mean? Like, it just doesn't work that way.
Yeah. Up until he slapped him, I would have said Gordon was right in this, because Galvao flipped him off. Galvao initiated the verbal exchange. Gordon was still walking away. Once they start walking towards each other, I'm still on Gordon's in the right here. Gordon slaps him. You shouldn't hit people in public. You shouldn't. Now you're both wrong. Galvao is more wrong than Gordon is wrong. Gordon goes to do his interview. Galvao approaches him. Wrong again. Gordon now has had enough. I'm sympathetic to that feeling. You've already slapped this dude because he came too close to you. Now he's coming back, antagonizing you again. All right, it's time to fight him. I get it. It's not the right behavior, but I get it. At the end of the whole thing, I think they both did not act the way that you should act. I think Galvao acted worse. I'm not surprised. Like, I see people commenting about, like, oh, it's jiu-jitsu and guys, da-da-da-da-da, have better respect, blah, 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 blah. I guess we're just glossing over the way the Gracies acted in Brazil when they just challenged people to fights constantly, and you just had Ralph Gracie go to jail. We talked about last episode. Like, this is, unfortunately, this is a combat sport. People are going to participate in that sport and be, especially Gordon's just competed. You're going to be fired up. These guys hate each other. I'm actually surprised that when Gordon slapped him, he didn't just literally punch him in the face and start a fist fight. He slapped him and kept on moving, which I guess was better than punching him and pounding on him. Like, not quite as good as just walking away, but better than an actual fist fight. You can't say that they disrespected jiu-jitsu any more than has ever been done before in the past. It's just the most high-profile thing because it's the best grappler in the world right now and the guy that he hates the most. Like, that's what it is. It shouldn't have happened. It's a bad look for the sport, but let's not act like this is the first time that jiu-jitsu's name has had a blemish on it because of a fight at an event. Like,
yeah, Brazilian jiu-jitsu originated in literally one of the most dangerous cities in the world. They used to storm gyms and beat the fuck out of each other. I don't get too high on this. Like, and Gordon Ryan has said it in the past, and I've agreed. Like, you know, talking about respect and everything, when this is built on these savages back in Brazil that would, you know, just start fights on, just go on a whim. But let's play a game. Let's assign fault. Like 100% of the pie. You can assign X amount of fault to Gordon and Y amount of fault to Galvao to complete the 100%.
I would go 65-35. Galvao is more at fault than Gordon is.
Okay, yeah, I would, yeah, that's high for me. I would say, and I mean high on the Gordon side. So I would say 85-15. I just like the only thing, like if you're Gordon and you're gonna walk away, then just walk away.
Before we move on, this was not staged.
No.
I see a lot of people saying it's staged.
Yeah, no.
This was not staged. This was not going to... They're either going to compete at ADCC or they're not.
Yeah.
This wasn't going to help or hurt it. Is this really the end of the world? No. If you're taking your morals from two professional jiu-jitsu fighters, you probably have bigger problems, so this shouldn't put you into any sort of ethical dilemma. This is just a thing that happened, and it was entertaining to watch. I can acknowledge that it was not appropriate behavior for two grown men, but it happened, and let's move on.
Okay, and let me just throw this in there. Gordon will fucking destroy Andre Galvao in a jiu-jitsu match. Anybody who doesn't think that is living in an alternate universe.
Craig Jones versus Ronaldo Jr. went the way that I thought it would. I don't take anything away from Ronaldo Jr. This is kind of his first foray into high-level black belt, no-gi, and Craig is one of the best. I was really happy. Craig was playing a lot of half guard, Z guard. That's sort of where I base my half guard, Z guard on, is stealing it from Craig Jones and Lachlan and all those guys. But yeah, Craig Jones wins via inside heel hook off of like a modified 50-50 position, and he controlled the whole match, man. It was Craig Jones' show.
The one thing that I saw Danaher say at the beginning, or prior to Craig Jones's match, that I really agree with, and just looking at Ronaldo, and watching him I put some time into watching him before he was supposed to fight Gordon, before Gordon caught the Rona. He moves laterally like crazy. Like his passing is side to side is crazy. Just really high pace, up tempo, and he competes a lot of it. A lot of the time he competes in the gi. I mean, he does do no gi, but his accomplishments are more well known in the gi. And Danaher put it
Yeah,
best.
it's just the first time we've really seen him like at a high level show in a no gi, not IBJJF environment. Like this is sort of his first.
So Danaher said like his passing translates well into nogi because his passing is based on movement and not grips. So he's not relying on the grips to do this. So and when I saw that, I agreed with it, but I'm like, that movement's going to put him right into the danger zone with Craig Jones. You know what I
Yeah.
mean? Because he's moving in and out. He's moving side to side, and he's leaving his legs out there. And all it takes, you know what I mean? It's not like he's like Gordon Ryan has success against Craig Jones because he's there's two kinds of passing, right? You need to do the tight pressure passing on Craig Jones. Like that's what you need to do. And I knew that the passing that Ronaldo is kind of famous for wasn't going to be the answer here, and I thought it was going to do more damage than good for him, and I was right. You know.
Yeah. If you give Craig Jones space underneath you, that's like the worst possible way to play against Craig Jones. And he exposed the heel. He ended up in that sort of modified 50-50. And with a guy like Craig, once the heel is exposed, not even once the grip is established, not even once the position is established, once the glimmer of that heel is there, you're not recovering it. You're not pulling it back. And it was a really good performance by Craig. I think that Craig is one of the more exciting guys to watch, especially when he can really dictate what's happening in the match. He kept pulling to that half guard, Z guard position, and when he's in the driver's seat, it's a fun style to watch. And I think that's why Craig has always had success, is because it's fun to watch and he's really, really, really good. You see how much Gordon talks about how much of a great training partner he is and what he brings. I think that with the exception of our best friend Mason Fowler, there's not a lot of people in
Yeah.
the world who Craig Jones is going to lose to.
Shout out Mason Fowler, friend of the show, friend of ours, friend of
Friend
yours,
of the
friend of
show.
mine, friend of ours. Benji Silva, what up, Benji?
We spent a lot of time talking about Gordon Ryan, but his match was again just Gordon being Gordon. I think he could have finished that match in the first 30 seconds.
I do too.
He had a nice leg entanglement, and I think he got a really nice leg entanglement and was prepared to win via a leg lock, and then remembered that he had posted on social media that he was going to win via mounted armbar and decided to let the match keep going. We're not going to get super into it because I did a really in-depth breakdown of the Gordon Ryan finish. It's actually linked over here, not where Mike was pointing. If you're not watching and you're just listening, I'll put the link to our YouTube below in the description if you're listening to the audio only. But Gordon was just in control the whole time.
The whole
There was
time.
never a point where Gordon was in danger. So
And
the video is worth a watch. Check it
yeah,
out.
Roberto Jimenez is tremendous. He's a tremendous grappler. He's a relatively new black belt, but he's fought some huge names. He beat Keenan. He fought Cyborg. He fought another big name too. But he's coming on strong. But I just at the end of the day, I think he's 185 pounds. He'll be back. He's going to be. I really believe he's going to be a world champ one day. He's great. He's
He's
great.
young too, right? How old is he? Do you know
Yeah,
off the top of your
he's
head?
young 20s. I think he's like 21, 22
Yeah.
years old. But with that being said, having Gordon Ryan S mounted on top of him, it probably felt like he had a a small sedan on sitting on his chest. Like he could not move. You could see it. He did a really good job initially getting out of that out of the armbar attempt, and then he did what would work against most people to get out of it the second time, but Gordon adjusted, and
Yeah.
that's why
Gordon Ryan is not most people.
yeah,
So
that's why he's the best in the world. So
another match we're not going to go too crazy into is the Andrew Wiltse match versus PJ Branch, because we're going to talk about that with Andrew Wiltse himself later on this week on the show.
yeah,
So we don't need to break it down now because he's just going to break it down for us. So make sure you're subscribed if you aren't already, so you don't miss that interview we're going to do with him.
yeah, he kept asking to come on. He's like, "Can I come on? Can I?" We're like, "Fine, yeah, you can come on."
Maybe I'll cut that out in case he listens to this before we talk.
Can you
to him
imagine
because,
that? Like if he thought
that's
we
not
were
at all true.
Yeah.
If you see a post on Instagram about how we don't have an episode for later in this week, you can know that that was because Mike just said that. But we are very excited. Andrew Wiltse of Daisy Fresh fame, who just competed this weekend, is going to come on and talk to us.
And I've been watching Daisy Fresh since like it first came out. Like I got Justin on the Daisy Fresh train. Like I'll talk Daisy Fresh with anybody who wants to talk about it. Like Michael Sears and Flow Grappling and all those guys did it. That series is fucking incredible. If you haven't watched it, watch it. There's 5 episodes out. Those guys training in a laundromat out in Mount Vernon. We'll talk about it later this week with Andrew, but they're fucking savages. Their jiu-jitsu is off the charts. Big things coming from those guys. So we're stoked.
If you listen to our episode where we talked to Lachlan Giles, which I'll throw that up here, you may have noticed I was doing my best not to be like fanboy on Lachlan Giles. I was pretty good at it, I think, but Mike is not going to be good about not fanboying all over Andrew. Yeah. So you'll probably, you might notice that he asks a lot more questions in the interview than I do on a typical interview episode. But I'll tell you who I was impressed with this weekend was Jessica Khan versus Danielle Kelly.
Yeah.
That was all Jessica Khan. And that was her first match as a black belt. It's her black belt debut. And we talked about 2 matches already where we said it was all Craig Jones the whole time. It was all Gordon Ryan the whole time. And this is a third one where it was all Jessica Khan the whole time.
Yeah. She's a AOJ, right? She's with the Mendez brothers?
Yeah, she's with the Mendez brothers.
You know who Jessica Khan has lost to? Grace motherfucking Gondrum.
I mean, Grace is Grace. Like, did you see during the broadcast they had Grace at like way down number 10 pound for pound list on the female list? I thought that was a bit of a That was a little low.
Wait, let me just talk about this female list. Did you see Gabby Garcia trying to break up that fight between Galvao and Gordon in a sports bra? And she is.
I did.
She is an intimidating individual.
We'll talk about her match next because she also competed on what would consider the greatest jiu-jitsu card of all time. Yeah. But Jessica Khan, I was impressed that Danielle Kelly is a good wrestler. Like it's known that she's a good wrestler. She's got good leg locks. And Jessica Khan was patient and waited, and Danielle Kelly kept trying to shoot, and Jessica Khan was trying to time the guillotine over and over. The one time, Jessa missed the guillotine and immediately fell like into a textbook closed guard armbar attempt. Like she was just chaining it together. It was a very impressive match. She was using her closed guard, which when someone can use their closed guard to be attacking, I think it's a lot of fun to watch. I know a lot of people don't like closed guard, but she was forcing Danielle to try to stand at least one leg up to pass, and then she was going underneath to attack with the leg locks, and I thought it was a very good match. It was a very good match.
Same. I was impressed. I really was.
And then when she missed that leg lock and then came up and got like a big takedown and was on top for a little while, like you don't really expect to see that from someone against Danielle Kelly, but
right. And here's the thing: if you watch the Mendez brothers, they're sneaky. How they chain everything together. Like there's a video out there floating around of of Rafael Mendez rolling with Andre Galvao back in the day. It was probably 8 to 10 years ago. Um, but the majority of the video is Galvao just trying, and Galvao was a multi-time world champion at this point, trying to pass Rafael Mendez's guard, and he just couldn't do it. And then all of a sudden, Rafael Mendez sits up, gets a leg, takes him down, gets his back, and chokes him out. It was unbelievable. The sequence was unbelievable. And, you look at Jessica Khan and you just you see the little isms of the Mendez brothers in her game. And,
Yeah.
For her to come on as a black belt and beat Danielle Kelly like she did is just, it's one of the more impressive things I've seen.
Yeah. And Danielle Kelly, I saw she had said some things after the match where she was obviously not happy with her performance and she wanted to go back on work on things. And I still think Danielle Kelly is a very, very good grappler. I think that she'll respond well from this, but that shouldn't overshadow what a good black belt debut for Jessica Khan. What a good fight.
Right.
Your favorite grappler in the world, Gabby Garcia, did compete against. Is it Natalie DeJesus? Is that Natalie? It's just spelled weird.
Yeah.
I'm just gonna say DeJesus, but she, Gabby Garcia has a habit, and by habit I mean it happened one time, of winning matches when she doesn't really do a lot, like against Elizabeth Clay, a match that Gabby actually lost. This match against DeJesus, it was pretty back and forth. Like they were both working for stuff a lot, but DeJesus ended up getting her back like late in the match, and I think that's what really sealed it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah, there's not. I mean, like, let's be, brutally honest here. Gabby Garcia matches aren't the most exciting matches on the planet. You kind of got to know that going in.
yeah,
But she's a huge name in the sport. She's a good ambassador for the sport. So you like seeing her on these cards, but you have to know what you're getting. It's not going to be.
you're not gonna get a technique fest.
Yeah.
You're gonna need someone. You're gonna need someone who's gonna threaten her a lot, so she has to threaten back.
Right.
And that's what happened in this match. You had DeJesus was attacking legs, and Gabby would try to counterattack a leg, and then Gabby would attack a leg, and DeJesus would try to counterattack a leg, and that's eventually is what led to DeJesus taking the back. It was sort of a scramble off of a leg lock defense. DeJesus takes the back. She worked for chokes. Like she had control there. It wasn't just like she was on there for a fleeting second. And then Gabby defended, but then the match ends with DeJesus on top again, trying to pass her half guard. And if you took out those two things, I think it's an even match. She just did more than Gabby did to win it. But this was a more exciting match than a usual, like you said, a usual Gabby match. One more match that I want to talk about was the Gio Martinez match. Do you think that was an exciting match or a fun match to watch?
This is going to sound crazy, and I'll probably get some blowback on it. I'm just not a big fan of Gio's style.
Yeah.
See, Here's another thing. I think Gio's a little overrated.
I mean, we can fall back on that. Eddie Bravo's system has never won a major world championship or ADCC. I mean, that is what people say. I think, I can watch a 15 long minute match of trying to pass versus not trying to pass. And that's what this match was. There was a couple attempts where Junie went for a Berimbolo, where they would end up both kind of threatening the leg locks, and they stood up for a little bit and hand fought, but it was basically Junie was sitting to his guard and Gio was trying to standing pass. And that was the whole match. And Gio won via decision. And I could understand the argument that it wasn't super exciting, but I can watch that match. I can still enjoy watching that match.
Yeah, I mean, it was okay. You know what I mean? It was probably like I don't know. The Jacob Couch match was really exciting. The four other matches we talked about were really exciting. It was a high paced match. Again, I just not the biggest fan.
I think though with jiu-jitsu, we've talked about with jiu-jitsu. Jiu-jitsu can be a tough sell as a spectator sport sometimes. If you have matches like these where neither guy can get a clear advantage and neither guy can get a clear dominant position, and you get these two styles that maybe these two styles don't make a great matchup, I can understand that sometimes jiu-jitsu is not super compelling to watch, but I wouldn't want every match on the card to be like this one. But considering how many great fights we had on this event, if this was the most quote unquote boring match,
well, it
that's a
wasn't
win
boring.
for me.
It wasn't boring. You know what I mean? But yeah, it was. It wasn't my favorite match on the card, and overall the card was stacked. So it was, and it lived up to the hype. So, you know,
Yeah.
Just one more thing about who's number one. I can't understand the reasoning behind the Gordon versus Wagner match on the 26th. So it's coming up in 3 weeks.
So they announced, like the day before this match, or did they announce on the same day? But they announced Gordon Ryan versus Wagner Roca on March 26th, which is like a month away.
Yeah, it's 3 weeks from this Saturday or from this Friday.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, Gordon's gonna fucking destroy him. So
Yeah, Wagner's been tearing it up though. He's competed a lot for Seth, the fight to win. I get it. I'll watch the match.
okay, but you agree that he's gonna get submitted by whatever Gordon wants to submit him with, right?
Gordon will submit him, but he won't be able to call his shot.
Okay. All right, guys. Thanks for hanging out with us. We put links to our social media accounts below, so if you want to follow us individually or you want to follow the show, just click the link and check it out.
If you like this video, please give it a big thumbs up and make sure that you're subscribed. We have a lot of cool stuff coming this week, including that interview with Andrew that we talked about earlier, so you're not going to want to miss any of that. And if you want to support the show, I put a link below to our Patreon. We have tons of bonus content there. We have monthly blooper reels, bonus episodes. So it's a great way to help the show and also get some extra stuff from us. Don't walk up to Gordon Ryan unless you want to get slapped.
Don't make Gordon Ryan smack a bitch.
Thanks, everybody. We'll see you next time.
Thanks, guys.